Hi there. So I just recorded this video and it officially was 10 minutes long, and I realized I was rambling a little too much. So I'm going to try and be as concise and practical as possible. Alyssa here is running into the issue where her little one has learned a new skill. Her little one is walking now and now refuses to sleep effectively, properly, as many hours as they should. And that is causing some issues. So Alyssa is trying to do Ferber training. However, the method that you're doing, Alyssa, is going to bite you in the butt, and I'll tell you why. In Ferber, one of the most important traits is that you are consistent, because if you aren't consistent, then you are erasing essentially all of the progress that you've made. And so the discomforts of hearing your baby cry each night are all in vain, and you don't want that. You want to make sure that what you're doing is reaping a benefit for you and your family and your baby. I sleep trained my little at just before 5 months. I wasn't comfortable doing it earlier with him. I waited until I felt, intuitively correct and able to do so, and that I knew he was ready. So he was just about 5 months. He had been waking hourly at night for a few months. That means like 12 times a night. It was crazy. It was exhausting, and I knew it was time, and he wasn't getting better. So I was like, I kind of have to sleep train to function, and I chose the Ferber method. I'm going to explain the basics of the Ferber method and why it works, okay? So everyone knows, cry it out exists, and in that case, you're just letting the baby cry for hours and hours and hours, and they feel alone, they feel abandoned. That's something I don't really feel comfortable with, and so I was looking for an option that eliminates that feeling of abandonment, and that's what Ferber is. So when you're doing your check-ins, your baby can be at peace knowing that they're okay, you're there for them if they need you, and they don't have to be scared or afraid or lonely in their crib. It continues building trust, and it brings peace and faith that their environment is safe for them, and that's where they are to sleep. At the same time as eliminating the abandonment factor, you are still being very strict in that this is where you sleep. And so when you intervene, you are not supposed to introduce rocking, picking the baby up, taking them out of the room and cuddling with them. You're not supposed to offer those things. And ideally, if you want things to be very successful, you don't offer sleep crutches either, like a Nook that can't be replaced themselves or things like that as well. So my check-ins involved me, once I hear the baby start crying consistently, I set my timer for the 3 minutes. That's day 1, 3 minutes, first interval. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And I listen to my music, wear my headphones, whatever, because it's not comfortable to hear a baby crying. And I let that timer go off, and then I get up and I go in there. And I say, hey, you're okay. Mama's here. You're safe. I give them some back pats. If your baby's older and they're standing, you will have to lay them down. They're not going to like it. And you just let them know they're okay. You don't offer any sleep crutches. You don't pick them up. That's very key. After this check, you leave the room, and that's it. And your baby will usually cry a little harder for a minute after that. And they might cry hard for a few checks because they're still learning what your response is going to be. But ultimately, you continue doing the intervals. So let's say your baby doesn't stop crying after your first check. You wait another, whatever it is, 5 minutes or so. You do the same exact thing. You don't pick up your baby. You lay them down, you pat their back, you tell them they're okay, that they're safe. You leave the room. All right, and then let's say they keep on crying another 7 minutes, okay? Same thing, check in. And oftentimes when you're consistent in this style, the babies will, 1, understand that they're safe, they are not alone, that you are there for them. But at the same time, they also understand that you are not going to remove them from their room. This is my little one, by the way. You are not going to remove them from their room, and they learn that through your consistency. You're not going to remove them from their crib. You're not going to pick them up. You're not going to rock them. And that is okay, because that gives them the chance to actually learn how to soothe themselves. And you really want to give them that opportunity. So each interval starts when consistent crying starts during a wake. And if your baby's kind of crying intermittently, a little on and off, don't check in, because sometimes that can actually cause more issues and cause them to be more worked up. So it's really when it's a consistent cry, you start that timer. And if they, let's say they cry for 2 minutes and then they stop for 2 minutes and then they cry for 2 more, you reset that timer, okay? All right, so my first night of Ferber with my almost 5-month-old, it was constant. I mean, every wake he was crying. I had to do the Ferber rounds probably like, I don't know, 7, 8 times. And for your information, like, let's say I do the intervals, like I go 3, 5, 7, and then he sleeps for an hour. Now you're resetting and you're doing 3, 5, 7 again, okay? So you don't continue spacing them out each time. You reset for each wake, okay? So my night looked a lot like 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 3, 3, 3. You know, like I had a lot of Ferber check-ins that night. I was also maintaining some night feeds during this time, so during certain windows, instead of responding with Ferber, I responded with a feed, okay? I was breastfeeding too, so he still needed a few night feeds, and that was a big part of my planning as well. If my baby woke up within that interval, there was a response as a feed. If they woke up outside of that interval, it was Ferber method. Or if they, let's say they wake up later than that interval, then it's a feed, sure. Like if they didn't wake up for that interval, but they woke up later for it, that's a feed. Enough details, I'm already rambling again. So then night 2, it was a little better, but mostly similar. And on day 2, you are using day 2 intervals. So it's something like 5, 8, 11, you know, like they're a little bit more spaced out, and you don't respond as quickly on night 2 as you did on night 1, but it's still pretty quick. And then, so I think my night 2 was, maybe I had like 5 times I had to do it, Ferber interval training. And then night 3, I only think I had to do it maybe like 2, 3 times max. And he was really kind of getting the hang of things. By night 4, he did not need me for any other time except for his night feeds. And so I considered my Ferber training was complete. And there was a time I utilized it a little bit later on to help him wean down a feed at night because he was, you know, resisting it and didn't want it anymore, but still waking for it. So I ended up training him down another feed. But then after that point, he started dropping his night feeds naturally. I also want to say something else about the Ferber training. My son was a chronic contact napper, and of course I loved that, and at first, like, I'm comfortable with it because he's little, he wants to be close to me, and I'm good with that, but at some point you do desire occasional moments of independence, of being able to get some things done. And after I did the Ferber training, I'm not even gonna lie, he fell asleep independently in his crib for like a 45-minute nap. And I was mind blown. I used to pace for an hour to get 10 minutes in the crib. Like, he would not nap very long in the crib, max, and it would take so much effort, and even his normal naps were short, so I'm like, what am I doing? I want to throw in a little snippet here. I know it's going to get long, but people want to demonize sleep training these days, and I'm telling you, do what is best for your family, that your mother's intuition that you have is comfortable with and is guiding you to do, because your mother's intuition does not lie. You know your baby, you know what they're ready for, you know what you need, what they need for health in the family, and you need to do that. Don't let the world today tell you that you are a bad person for doing Ferber method with your baby, because let me tell you, after I did the Ferber method with my son, not only were we feeling great, getting longer night's sleep, but he was a changed baby. I am not lying. Like, the next day he was just so cheery and happy, and just he napped well, and it was just so good. And I'm like, he really has been depriving himself of sleep. And the reason we are parents, like, one of the things we're supposed to do is guide our children to healthy lifestyle. And that includes things like sleep training sometimes, depending on the needs of your family. Okay, I'm sorry this one's just as long, but I think it's much more concise, practical, and I think you can apply it better. So if you have any further questions, I am very happy to answer them.